Morning. Hey there, YouTube. How you doing? We've jumped over to our Turkey news. We got one clip, but it's kind of a beefy one at 10 minutes. And it's asking the question, could Turkey invade Syria? Turkey has been all over the place right now diplomatically, handling the Ukrainian-Russian conflict in a very unique manner. It's amazing that Putin will shake Erdogan's hand while Turkey is not fully on board for the Russian invasion, and in some cases actually selling weapons to Ukraine to fight against Turkey. It's crazy. When it comes to mediators, though, the best choice would be Turkey because of this relationship that it's had with Russia and Ukraine for quite some time. But on top of that, they seem to be making moves internationally in a few places. They're leveraging their power in NATO and in the UN to get what they want. They want more military. They want more leverage, and here and there when it comes to energy. So it's really interesting to see Turkey turning the screws and really working in their own self-interest right now against these behemoths, right? Because you don't really think of Turkey, who's like most Americans are unaware that Turkey is a major global player when it comes to these nations. In fact, if Russia and the US were to legitimately go to war, it would likely be Turkey that would assist us in mediating that conflict and ending that conflict. And Turkey would, of course, have all the spotlights put on it. But it's actually more important than a lot of people are giving it credit. And I've said this many times before. If I was going to college to study politics, I think I would study Turkish politics, because I've never seen a country politically act the way that it does, and it seems a very unique situation, and I know very little about it. So here we go. Let's jump into this TLDR news. I like these guys. Erdogan is super savvy. His biggest political rival is some cult leader living in the U.S. I don't know about that statement, Clutch. You talking about Trump or?
Since the civil war began in 2011, Syria has become a geopolitical free-for-all. Today, Russia, America, and Turkey all have forces in the region, and fighting between Assad's forces and various opposition groups is ongoing. Nonetheless, things could get even more chaotic, because in the last few weeks, Turkish President Erdogan has begun preparing for a ground invasion into the northeastern part of Syria, which is currently occupied by a Kurd-led militia. So in this video, we're going to do our best to explain why Erdogan is threatening to invade Syria, whether he'll actually do it, and some of the geopolitical implications.
I like TLDR. I mean, it's all millennial and twee, and this guy apparently lives in the nicest fucking apartment I've ever seen in my life, and he dresses like, I don't know, he just left the library at his college, in his college campus. I think he does a pretty good job, though, reporting on some of these stories. They seem pretty well researched. One criticism I would give TLDR is put your sources for this information in the video or the description. It really bothers me that I have no idea where you're sourcing this information, where you're getting it from. Is this from the AP? Is this from the Senate? Or from the from the government? Or what I mean? That's my big criticism for TLDR. Just show me where you're getting this info, where you're pulling it from. I understand, though, that can add hours and hours and hours to your production time, sourcing literally everything that you put in there. But fuck, man, this is news, dude, and I want to know where you're getting your information from so I can confirm those sources, so I can make sure you're on the level and everyone's on the level. That's how this works, baby. We don't, we got to pull from every source, man. It's a news bukkake,
To actually explain
That's the best way to describe it, news bukkake, okay? Get over yourself. Come on, you prudes. Bukkake it up.
Current situation in Syria. Let's start with a bit of context. Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad, came to power in 2000 after his father's deaths. Hafez was previously the Minister of Defense who took advantage of Syria's reoccurring political instability to seize power in 1970. Much like his son, he was an autocrat who basically ran the country via executive fiat. Originally, he intended for his oldest son, Bassel, to be his successor.
That's a dictator, right? That's just a nice way to say dictator.
But Bassel was killed in a car crash in 1994, leaving Bashar to take power 6 years later. Originally, Bashar promised reform. He continued with the privatization of industry that began under his father. transitioning away from a centralized system to a Western-style free market economy. However, these reforms failed to have the intended effect and ended up mostly benefiting well-connected elites who had supported Bashar's regime in the past.
And they tried so hard to make it work for people. And they had no idea that it was just going to help rich people out. Oh, God, it just keeps happening that way, man. What a coincidence.
Public sentiment wasn't helped by the fact that from 2006 to 2010, Syria suffered through a record-breaking drought, pushing up food prices and putting pressure on Syrian living standards. On top of that, Bashar refused to authorize new political parties, and when the Arab Spring kicked off in 2011, prompting calls for further reform and democracy, Bashar cracked down violently. Assad's crackdown eventually plunged the country into a full-blown civil war.
I believe this is where the accusations of gassing his own civilians comes from, was his response to this,
which has been raging ever since. The thing that makes this conflict so complicated is the different groups that are fighting within the country. Again, to understand where the civil war is right now, you need to understand these groups and their motives. Obviously, one of the main groups is Bashar al-Assad and his Ba'athist government, and they're fighting to maintain his grip on power.
Ba'athist.
Assad is backed by Russia, who are supporting Assad for both strategic and political reasons. Strategically, Putin wants to remain relevant in the region, and he has an airbase and port, which he uses as his base for his Black Sea fleet, which he wants to keep hold of. And
yeah, we'll keep fucking around, Putin.
politically, maintaining a presence in the Middle East.
Hey, everyone, I would like to thank Taking It Up the Butt. Where's my... There it is. There's this. This is amazing. Hey, Taking It Up the Butt. Thank you so much for your support and your follow. Taking It Up the Butt, everybody. Thank you so much for your follow, man. Wow. Twitch is a wasteland. That reminds me, I need to find my Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader and start doing the game show again.
Allows Russia to posture as a superpower and gives it an opportunity to flex its newfound military weight. Although it's probably a bit redundant now that Russia's army have performed so poorly in Ukraine. Assad is also supported by Iran, which see Assad's success as a key to their regional interests. And that's because Iran and Syria have been strong allies since the Islamic Revolution in 1979, when the Ayatollahs were supported by Assad Sr. Additionally, Syria and Iran are both anti-Israel, so Iran wants to ensure that they maintain a key ally by ensuring that Assad remains in office. Now, while Iran and Russia are the main backers of Assad, Hezbollah in Lebanon have also backed him, as did Iraq for a short period. On the other side, the main domestic group who oppose Assad are the Syrian Democratic Forces, which encompass a number of different groups, but are led by the People's Protection Unit, the YPG, a Kurdish military force. This group's aims are to oust Bashar al-Assad and, as their name suggests, create a more democratic Syria. Now, this actually creates a bit of a dilemma for Turkey. In the 2000s, Erdogan was actually pretty friendly with Assad, but he was always at least sympathetic to the Muslim Brotherhood, the preeminent political opposition in Syria who were exiled by the Assad regime. Now, when Assad cracked down hard on protesters against Erdogan's advice, he switched sides and threw his weight behind the rebels, and essentially the Islamist groups. However, as the Kurds have established themselves as the primary opposition against Assad, Erdogan is faced with a dilemma, because while Erdogan wants Assad gone, he doesn't want the Kurds to establish themselves in northern Syria, which could eventually lead to a Kurdish state in the region.
Yeah.
For context, since the 80s...
It'd create a power vacuum that the Kurds would fill. The Kurds are not to be fucked with. They are some... everything I've heard about these guys, they're nutso fighters. Fighters. Like one Kurd soldier's worth, your average one or two soldiers. These guys are crazy. right? And they do have the gumption to fill that power vacuum. If Assad was is Turkey supporting ISIS? Fuck, I don't know, man. It could be. I don't know, dude. That's the crazy thing about Turkey, right? It's like if he's the Machiavelli. It's the Machiavelli country, okay? I don't know what they're up to.
The Kurdish government has waged a series of wars against Kurdish nationalist groups, most notably the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, who in eastern Turkey are demanding Kurdish autonomy, or even full...
Quadruple E over here asking, aren't the Kurds supported by the U.S.? I'm pretty sure the U.S. has left the Kurds out to dry more than a few times. I do think there's some agreements. I need to know more about the situation. That's why I'm digging into it. If the mullahs in Iran fail, that might hugely impact the Israeli peace project process. Iran probably wouldn't continue funding Hezbollah, for example. Would Lebanon stabilize then? I don't know. The whole thing's up. Whew. I need to know more about this before I can speak. I'm not Vosh and Destiny over here, like I'm pretending like I know what the fuck I'm talking about when clearly I don't. I also noticed that they just won't talk about certain things that they don't know, so that they don't look stupid, right? Oh, I'm not ignorant. I literally know everything, but let's just not talk about it because I don't want to learn anything on stream. Kind of pathetic. It's kind of cowardly, right? Come on, let us, learn along with us, Vosh. I know you're not a fucking genius. You're a goddamn weeb.
Full-blown Kurdish independence. Erdogan will be worried then that if Kurds in northern Syria establish a Kurdish state, they'll fuel Kurdish nationalist sentiment in Turkey itself. This is why over the past decade or so, Turkey has staged at least 4 interventions against the Kurds. Now, Syria is currently split into 2 main regions: the western Assad-controlled region and the eastern Syrian Democratic Forces-controlled region. But it's often overlooked that Turkey actually controls a small region of Syria in the north. In the area controlled by Turkey, children in schools learn Turkish as a second language. The lira is a dominant currency, and Turkey's postal service is used to pay the salaries of local workers. Turkey is very clearly then trying to establish itself in Syria, primarily to weaken the Kurds. However,
would anyone
in late
stop
November,
them? Would anyone stop them if they just pulled the trigger and went for it? What would happen? What would happen if that... Oh boy, what the fuck? Who would sanction and who wouldn't? Who would condemn and who would stay silent?
Erdogan suggested that he may actually soon step up his actions in Syria, proposing a land invasion in retaliation against a bomb attack in Istanbul, which Erdogan claims was orchestrated by the PKK and the YPG.
So he would focus the invasion in the Kurdish region, and then what, just keep it?
For their part, both the PKK and YPG have denied involvement. Now, up until this point, Turkey's main involvement has been through the use of air force. A land-based invasion would therefore amount to a major escalation. So, most major players on the international stage have urged Turkey not to escalate, including, perhaps most notably, their usual allies, Russia and Iran. But Erdogan has refused to rule it out. So why is Erdogan threatening an escalation now? Well, as we see it, there are 2 reasons. Firstly, the Kurdish groups are establishing themselves in northern Syria, and Erdogan is genuinely worried about the prospect of Kurdish sectarianism in the future. However, the second reason is political. As we've detailed in previous videos, Erdogan is struggling in the polls at the moment. While polling suggests that his AKP party are still on track to be the largest party, albeit only by a small margin, they'll probably lose their parliamentary majority in the next election, and their coalition partner, the Nationalist Movement Party, are polling on less than 10% and could fall below the 7% electoral threshold. Similarly, polling for the presidential election suggests that the most popular opposition candidates are now
So there's no way that Turkey's going to be able to take control, by encouraging a separatist government to be in charge.
Neck with Erdogan. And a couple of recent polls have actually given one of his contenders a tentative lead over Erdogan. That politician is the leader of Turkey's main opposition party, the Republican People's Party, who lead an opposition alliance comprising of 6 parties, with a shared platform focused on abolishing the presidential system of government in Turkey, that granted vast executive powers to Erdogan in 2018. Anyway, you get the point. The polls for the 2023 election are neck and neck, and with a worsening economic crisis, the opposition could plausibly pull ahead. A land offensive against the Kurd would distract the electorate from the economic issues facing the country and allow Erdogan to campaign on foreign policy, an area where he's far more comfortable. You get the idea then. Erdogan's potential invasion of Syria is perhaps best explained by reference to his domestic...
We have talked about this. This is ringing a bell now. We have talked about how he might be starting a war to help his re-election.
...domestic political woes, rather than what he actually wants in Syria.
Now, what you want me to tell you here is that everyone knows what they're doing and is making rational decisions. But unfortunately, that's not always the case when it comes to politics. But it can be in your life if you sign up to Brilliant.
Shut the hell up. Yeah. Get your goddamn like and subscribe, folks. Help him out. He does good content and he deserves to monetize it. I'm not going to force you through it. Thank you very much, TLDR. Very interesting information there. What do you think? What is the YouTube comments section and Twitch right now? What do you guys think? Do you think Erdogan's going to do a ground invasion into Syria, into the Kurdish regions of Syria, in an effort to act like a tough guy and win his re-election? Not quite sure. You tell me. Thank you so much, YouTube. Like and subscribe. Do all that. Check out the Twitch stream. I got it in the description. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.